It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Spooky. I liked that one better.
Spooky.
All right. I hope everybody else is doing okay out there. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, I don't have a whole lot.
Famous last words.
She always says that when she goes on. Never mind. Go ahead.
2 hours later.
I've been getting caught up on a lot of stuff. Like right now, as we speak, The Walking Dead is doing their season finale, I think it is. Well, they say it's a finale, but it's like one of 3. Hello? The third one's the finale, right?
Well, we thought that is, we watched the movie Clue, too, but you had to go watch it 3 different times.
Right. It's like, oh. But yeah, so I kind of got caught up a little bit. Not completely caught up on that one yet, so I'm hoping no spoilers tomorrow, but, you know.
Given that this is a show that you utterly quit like a year ago, I'm, you know.
Yeah, I did. And then they did something. What happened? I can't remember, but something brought me back. It always drags me back. Oh, Maggie came back. So, and now with the ending, which they actually said Scott Gimple really didn't know that it was ending, that was totally AMC's call. And so I'm wondering if we're going to get like a really messed up cliffhanger at the end of this. Hopefully not.
Hopefully they did tell him at some point, you know.
Yeah, but with the pandemic happening and everything else, and broadcasting was stopped, everybody went home for like months of this, and I think that's when they found out. So I don't know if there were some rewrites that happened, but also they're spinning off Carol and Daryl, to do like their own show. Well, when they announce that, isn't that kind of like spoiler?
Yeah. I guess they're going to make it.
Right. I know who's not going to die tonight. Yeah. So I don't know if they quite thought about that one as much. But yeah, other than that, I'm still watching The Boys, and man, what an episode. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, I really urge you guys. It's getting better and better and better. I've seen a lot of things that they're really changing from the comics, which is a good thing because it gives you something different, you know. I don't want to get into spoilery territory, but there's like a main like Luke and Leia kind of situation going on right now. And I'm not sure if they're going with the way that the comics did that. If so, it's kind of incesty. So it's kind of uncomfortable right now watching this until I know exactly which way they're going to take this story. So, you know, it's kind of make you cringe in your seat, you know. So, but yeah, if you guys haven't seen that one, I'm still suggesting everybody go see that one. Not go see it. Stay at home. And then, of course, this Thursday, we also have Supernatural coming back. So, yay.
Yay.
For how long?
I think we're going to get 6 episodes out of this.
Okay.
I think it's either 6 or 8. I can't remember which one they said. But they said they extended it, kind of like The Walking Dead said they did. They kind of extended it to, I think they had a change of plan, which is kind of scary. So they had to have a few more episodes to kind of officially wrap things up.
Whoops.
Yeah. So that should be really good. But no, other than that, I've had a lot of fun watching a lot of the movies we're about to talk about and stuff. So that's about it. Yay! Nothing to rant about. Not yet.
Dang it.
What you guys got?
Uh-oh. That almost sounded foreboding. Well, gosh. Yeah, I finally got through the last movie for October. Which, hey, we got plenty of time left in October, so that's good. It was getting an early start helped this year. Didn't feel rushed. I don't feel like I'm absolutely done watching movies forever, as I sometimes get when I watch too many movies back to back. So that's good.
Yeah.
And on top of that, all the horror has started. And so now I get to try to keep up with that. That not having to watch movies helps me have time to try to keep up with all the podcasts I now have to listen to, which is going to be fun because, I mean, I have heard bits and pieces or single episodes of a lot of these folks, but it will be fun to kind of get back in the swing, and it will probably shake up my usual podcast rotation like it did last year, but that's okay. It'll be fun. It's always the collaboration stuff is always really good stuff. Strangely enough, you would think it wouldn't work so that you put two people, and I'll generalize and oversimplify, but you put two people who love to talk in a room together, and you don't always. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but man, it never fails to work out with these podcasts, because podcasters, I don't know, they're a different breed. They love to talk, and they love for everybody else to talk too. So I'm excited. I've already heard 3 or 4 episodes of different interesting stuff, so it's exciting.
Woohoo!
Hashtag all the horror. Or at allthehorror18 on Twitter. Shameless plug. Speaking of people who love to talk.
Did you get that sound effect?
Oh, yeah. Somebody has an opinion up in there. I don't know.
He just came in. That's how he greets the dogs.
Oh, that wasn't a dog. Oh, gosh. Okay. Alrighty then. Usually you must have a better finger on the mute button for that or something.
Yes.
I don't give a shit. I'm leaving it in. There's your rant for the night right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil.
Can't top that.
But try less.
Yeah, thanks ever so. I, too, have been catching up on the movies that we're covering. And I, too, started season 2 of The Boys. First thing I did, though, was I went back to the final episode of season 1 to make sure I had everything in order to go to season 2. And this is getting freaky.
Right?
I'm only into like 1 or 2 episodes, and it is getting freaky already.
Right.
But it is so fascinating. There are characters in there you just want to punch out.
Yeah.
And if I could, I would. And it doesn't matter if they're superheroes or not. You just can't take them. They're so smug. They're so self-righteous. Yet they'll be the first ones to point out any faults you might have.
Right.
The casting for this show is amazing because they are able to find exactly what buttons to push for each and every one of their characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, they changed this season to dropping it weekly. And I think with each episode I watch, it's because they're sitting back going, did we push it too far this time? Okay, we're good. Next episode. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Some of the best TV writing I've seen in years.
Mm-hmm. And not what you think of when you think superhero TV show.
Oh, hell no. No, this is the antithesis of that.
Mm-hmm. Where the quote bad guys are actually the good guys.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you, Liz. Take this in. Watch this movie or this show because it is so top notch and so different.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen an anti-hero treated this way. But boy, they take shots at everybody.
And it's kind of funny too when like the Deep is parroting Aquaman, and when you put it in that kind of context, it's hilarious.
Yes.
You don't see Superman doing those kind of things.
No.
Okay, for me, I don't really have a whole lot again. I've been working on finishing up the films for this month, and then working on other fellowship-related activities and scheduling and that kind of stuff. So, not a whole heck of a lot. Plus, just other things that have been going on in the real world, that kind of type stuff. So, sorry, I'm boring again.
Yeah, sometimes boring's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes not, but
Right.
sometimes it is.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot worse. Yes, I get it totally. I mean, it could be interesting in a bad way, So, yeah.
Right. Could be interesting in the terms of the old ancient Chinese proverb, or not proverb.
Which one?
Not proverb. The basically the curse that may you live in interesting times.
Mm.
Which I think hits a little too close to home right now. But anyway.
Right. Pretty much. So, before we get into this week's discussion, just kind of want to point out to everybody once again that we do have a Discord up and running, and it has been going for a few months now. Y'all are more than welcome to come join it. We usually post a lot of news items that's going on in pop culture. Have some fun stuff going on. Liz is doing a thing for this month for October, and it's been really kind of cool doing kind of seeing what she posts and kind of responding to what she posts. And I do thank you for doing that, Liz. That's pretty cool.
I like doing it.
And you're still wrong about candy corn, but anyway.
So till I was knocked about candy corn, man.
That shit is vile.
It's one of those things that people either really like it or they're just like, ugh, that's an abomination.
I fall into the latter category for sure.
But I'm the youngest of, 4 girls, so
that's all that
was
was
the
left
kind of
when you
shit,
got to it, right?
I had to learn to like it, man.
You had to divvy it up, so.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was good candy until I turned like 13. What are these Twix you talk of?
What's a Twix? Who is this? Who is this Reese guy you're talking? I don't know. What's he's got candy? What?
You mean all candy isn't waxy?
So we welcome you to come join us, kind of join in the fun and join in the discussion. Just go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Right there on the home page, there is a link right there. You just see join our Discord. Just click on that, and you'll automatically be invited, and we would love to have you. All right. We are continuing Horror Month, obviously, and continuing our examinations of films that starred Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And for this week, we've got a couple of films here. We have The Curse of Frankenstein, and we also have The Hound of Baskervilles. Curse of Frankenstein came out in 1957, and Baskervilles came out in 1958. Both of these were produced by Hammer, so we're still dealing with the Hammer. Most of the ones that we're examining are Hammer films, except for I think the last week are not. But which film would you like to discuss first?
I guess we'll go with the first one.
Wow.
Man, you've been saving that one up, haven't you?
That narrowed that down.
Well, go ahead, Liz.
All right, then, Smartass, start us off, right?
I was meant like the first one that came first, which I guess would be The Curse of Frankenstein.
Ah, yes.
And I have to admit, I don't think I've seen this one until we watched this for this. And the first time I watched it, I was thinking, I swear to God, if they wind up killing this little dog, I'm making all of y'all pay.
Hell no, they brought it back to life, man.
And he was cute. But when I was sitting there looking at it, though, and that little dog in the water, and it was like, man, that looks like fake as hell. Yeah. But actually, there at the end, I see why they went with that. So it was pretty cool. But the other problem I had was he married his cousin. But ding, 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 ding. I mean, that's kind of weird, right?
No, not back then. Not back then.
Okay.
Especially for nobility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much.
I just thought that was kind of.
That was pretty much straight out of the book.
But he didn't care for her. He cared for the maid a little too much.
That part was not straight out of the book, but anyway.
I really enjoyed this one. I don't think Christopher Lee said anything at all. Not even like a grunt or anything, so. But I did think it was kind of cool to see Frankenstein not green, like they always do him. I don't know if that was in the book or not.
No, the green was not in the book.
I mean, I can see why they'd go with green because, rotting flesh and that kind of stuff, but I really enjoyed.
Also, it looks good in Technicolor, but yeah.
Yeah, true.
It stands out better that way.
But it was a pretty good job on him. It was believable to piece together a guy for him to look like that, And then, of course, I loved the guy who was toasting the bride. He was breaking the fourth wall, right? Is that the first time ever?
Probably not, but it sure seemed that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely liked this one better than the Dracula ones. So, especially the Dracula AD. This was much, much better.
Can I get a hurrah?
Yeah, you're not setting the bar real high, aiming for better than the 72.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I liked this one.
So this was the first. This one was the first, right?
Yeah. This started Hammer Horror, essentially. Yeah.
I'd say it's a pretty good start too. Honestly, I agree. I like this movie. I think I like it as much for what's different about it for this with the story. I mean, and it makes sense. I think that they go with such a well-established story. I mean, I don't even know how many versions of this there were before this. The Frankenstein story. It had been done and done and done. It was a favorite, apparently. But yeah, there's some really interesting changes that they made. Their changes to some of the characters, and I'm not sure. Much like Liz, I'm not sure I had seen this movie before this watching. I have seen a couple of the others, later ones. So this one is actually interesting to go back and see the beginning of that, because not only do they take Victor in an interesting direction here, but he goes even further down the line. He goes even further into the dark side later on. I mean, obviously, spoiler, I mean, the end of this movie, they're walking him to the guillotine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, there are sequels, and he's in them. So
I did not know that.
he is actually not in all of them. There is one that he is not in, but
Right.
yeah, the one that came out the next year in '58, he's in it. So yeah, he has somehow gotten out of being executed for the murder of the servant.
Maybe his friend had a change of heart.
I don't know if the friend was in it or not. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
No.
Which is a bummer, because I actually thought he did a really nice job. I mean, he was mostly just whining and complaining the whole time, but
Yeah.
he was still likable.
It was like, dude, you taught him to be like that. Are we right?
He certainly taught him everything he knew, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that you can teach somebody to obsess like that.
Yeah.
That's a personality thing, not a learned behavior. But yeah, and I kind of like the way that went in this movie, because it's an undertone in the novel. But it's not. It doesn't get played out in the novel like it does, or in very many of the other adaptations like it does in this movie. I mean, you can't do what Victor did without being obsessive about stuff and without taking things just way too far. And I
Yeah.
think they kind of microsized that really well in this movie. They made him, they boiled him down to that drive and that drive alone.
Yeah. Because at first he was grave robbing, and then he
Right.
went to killing.
Right, and that wasn't how it went down in the novel, obviously, but it was. I think it was a slightly more entertaining way to see it, to present it, than him just sort of hiding in an attic at his college,
Yeah.
doing this stuff on his own. I mean, he had to get out and do the stuff, and they kind of showed that more here than they ever did in the novel. So that was cool. That was an interesting take.
Yeah.
I did like it.
I did too.
It is a good movie. There's no doubt. And when you see this and Horror of Dracula as a double feature, which is how it was presented when I was a kid, it sent shivers to watch. The first one they would show was Curse of Frankenstein. When you get done with that, you go, wow, that was spooky. How are they going to top it? And then they come at you with Horror of Dracula and go, wow, you guys did a top-notch job. It's a solid movie. It doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think it varied that much from the novelization in the respect that they were also looking at what had been done before. And because of that, they didn't mimic some of the scenes, which is, to me, was a smart idea.
Yeah.
Try to curate yourself. See how that goes. I do have a question about Victor and his cousin. Because when she returned...
Just a question?
Well, one of many, really. When she returned to Castle Frankenstein, she did not recognize Victor because she mistook his associate.
Yeah, Paul.
And that kind of struck me as odd.
Yeah, just a little.
Because to me, they weren't that far apart in age. Even if they were 10 years apart, she should be able to see who is who. But for some unknown reason, she was a swing and a miss.
Well, and if Paul was supposed to be his tutor when he got there, I guess it looked like he was a teenager then. Wouldn't he have been a lot older than him, too? And
yes.
You didn't notice that?
Yeah. They tried to make Peter Cushing look younger when he was playing the teenager, but they didn't really try to make Paul look older.
Yeah.
After 10 years had passed.
When they had aged him.
Yeah.
Or de-unaged him. I mean.
And I also thought it was kind of weird to ask somebody for money at a funeral. It was kind of like, that's creepy, but not the time. But I guess that's the way it was handled back then, too, you know.
I think they were trying to make a point with that.
Yeah, she was.
Right. They were trying to establish that character and Elizabeth kind of in one go because they were kind of inseparable at that point. But and so I think it was intentionally awkward.
Yeah.
Now, I also had a question about Victor as a young man, as a child, when he took over the grounds. I was so happy that he got out of the scene quickly because that rasping voice drove me crazy.
Yeah.
And I thought, you couldn't find somebody with a little more timbre in their voice, something that would actually resonate.
You're talking about to play like the 15-year-old Victor here?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was intentional too. Although I'm not. I'm not sure. I'm not with you. I think it might have been overdone a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, I think they wanted to stress that
How
basically
young he was.
not to put too fine a point on it that this kid's balls hadn't really dropped yet.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that was.
This guy
Or he'd already put him on the monster.
So you enjoyed that joke a little too much, Liz. I'm just saying.
And in this movie, I was wanting a button-down collar so bad. Please, people, you're going to poke someone's eye out with that stuff.
He
Yet,
was pretty sharp looking, though.
sharp, yeah, that's a term.
Oh God, that one made my head hurt. Yeah, the collars were all over the place, especially Paul's. He just couldn't keep them down, man. Because there was a couple of times that he had one just sort of flying away there.
I was seeing that in Victor, and I would have to rewind it to see if, they would move the shot, and I wanted to see if they moved the collar too. And there were times, yeah, it did, but most of the time they just played with it, and I went, yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I guess it's not unreasonable to not be perfect, but
Sure.
it doesn't. It does make you wonder if it was okay. We're just not worried about perfection, or let's make it look. Or we're just trying to get this thing shot, and we don't care what it looks like. I mean, hard to say.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a low enough budget thing, and like I said, this is the first horror. They had been making films for a little while, but not just a ton of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a little inexperience, and it could just be we don't have time to mess with it.
Ain't got no time for that.
But, a little tidbit of information here. Makeup artist was Phil Leakey on the first show, the Curse of Frankenstein. But he also worked with a guy named Roy Ashton. And at the end of Curse of Frankenstein, who was it? The associate producer, Nelson Keys, decided that he was only going to pay Leakey half his retainer for the next movie, which was The Hounds of Bakersville. So Leakey just kind of walked off. He was like, y'all can go get fucked, which he probably said something a lot worse than that. So actually it was kind of cool because Roy Ashton stepped into the spot, and he was the full-time makeup artist after that for Hounds of Baskervilles. And after what he did with that movie, he went on to do all of Hammer's films, and they actually paid him more than what Leakey was asking on his retainer. So, little drama there.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Not sure if that paid off or not. I mean, geez,
Yeah.
Well,
depends
he
on
went on.
whose it was.
Yeah. I think one of the best things that happened to Ashton was getting together with Leakey, because from that, like I said, he did Hammer's films. He was consulted for Dustin Hoffman in Little Big Man, Tales from the Crypt, The Creeping Flesh, and also The Pink Panther. So it kind of boosted his whole career.
Nice.
Yeah. But it also makes you wonder if Leakey would have stayed on and said, okay, I understand these are lower budgets, if he would have finally made the money that he was asking for as more popular as these got.
Right. As these movies actually started making money,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of a lot of money.
Yep.
Compared to
Because
what they're
I
spending.
think first when people start doing their first films or books or anything, your first couple of them, you're not going to make anything. You're basically going to sometimes get back what you put into them, but it's a lot of love and dedication, and you can't put money figures on that. But then the more love and dedication you put into it, that's when the money starts coming in. But it's hard to ask people to work for love and dedication.
It's hard to eat love and dedication, that's for sure.
Right. So I kind of understood, but it was kind of like that was a pretty lucky break for Ashton. But on both of these movies, I thought the makeup, especially like I said on Frankenstein, was very well done. He could have done better on the collars, granted, but...
Well, now that's probably a different person doing costumes. I mean, come on.
Yeah. But if you think, 1957? And prosthetics and stuff that was used on him, that was pretty freaking amazing,
Yeah, it looked pretty
Even
good,
for
really.
now, it would be, They may have given him a better hairpiece, but...
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
But even that wasn't bad for a dead guy.
There you go.
I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the film as well. Once again, I really love the look of this film, and I was just checking something here. It was directed by Terrence Fisher, who turns and eventually would direct most of the horror films for Hammer. So I mean, just about all the films you can think of, he did most of them during this period. So you kind of have a consistent vision with him being at the helm. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good film. I've not read the book, so I don't know how accurate it is to the book, and y'all have already pointed out a couple of things there, and in contrast to some of the other previous versions of this tale. But I think it's kind of underrated. It's not one of it's not one of those that gets shown all that often. Unlike the Draculas, and I guess that's because vampires are always popular. But yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of this film. I think I'm about ready to see it again.
Yeah.
And it always you talk about them trying to make Cushing look younger, and it kind of I understood they try to do that because this is not the first time I've seen it. It's been a while, but it's always going okay. It kind of works, or at least in my eyes, it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't,
Right. It depends. It kind of depends on how much you're willing to accept at that point.
Right.
How far out on that limb you're willing to climb. Because I mean, even a young Peter Cushing never really looks all that young.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It's not a criticism. He just doesn't. He's just got that look, and he just kind of looks like an old man. And
yeah,
it's fine.
It's a cheekbone.
Yeah, it's that kind of the cheekbone, the cheek structure, and kind of the way his eyes sit, and yeah, it's hard to make him look young. I mean, they had to put a wig on him, which wasn't obvious at all. But yeah, and it kind of still didn't work. I mean, he even sort of tried to sound younger. I don't know how he got directed on that one. That would have been an interesting conversation to hear. But
right.
yeah, it's one of those things where you just sort of take it for what it is. Okay, at least they're not trying to pass him off as the 15-year-old.
Right.
That would have been
Thank God.
Right, that would have been a huge mistake, because they would have had him talking like this, and it wouldn't have worked at all. But yeah.
Please go ahead and say it. Do you want fries with that?
I'm not sure which fast food joint to pick on, but welcome to Burger King. Can I help you?
See, I was thinking Shaggy.
Oh gosh.
Y'all go to food, I go to dogs.
No. Wow. I know. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Which is another reason I really enjoyed both of these movies this week.
Well, I guess that's a good segue. Let's go ahead and talk about the 1959 The Hound of Baskervilles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Directed by Terence Fisher.
I know, right?
I honestly have to say that when this movie started, I rented this on YouTube. And I thought maybe this was like some bad live action version of Beauty and the Beast with Gaston running around. And it even kind of had the same story with the girl and mad at the father and and she ran away to a beast. But didn't he kind of remind you guys of Gaston? What was his name? David Oxley?
The arrogance of this guy.
Sir Hugo.
Yeah. The costume, the hair, all of it. He was totally Gaston.
I can't argue with that, really. Unfortunately, I'd love to, but I can't.
I agree.
And every time, at least 20 times in this movie that the dog would howl, my dogs would go freaking nuts. So when the butler finally said it was a sound I never want to hear again in my life, it was like, preach it, brother.
You could relate.
I'm right there with you. I am so done. And I liked this one, but I found that it got slower in parts. Not that it was never not interesting, but it was just kind of, come on, get with it. I had never seen this one before. I watched this one too. I was a little pissed off about the dog thing at the end. Spoiler alert. But come to find out, this hound beast was a dog they had stuck in a cave and starved him for weeks and stuck a mask on him.
That was the story, Liz. That wasn't what they did to the actual dog.
No, that's what they did. Well, yeah, but the story. I was mad at the story. Right.
No, Liz, they did not do that.
Don't be mad at Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Be mad at Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yes, I'm mad at him. But it was kind of neat the way that they brought it all in. I wasn't expecting who it was. I really wasn't. I thought it was the doctor that had called them in to begin with. But then, halfway through, it's kind of like, well, why would he call them in to watch him? If he was guilty, he wouldn't want the best there. So I was not expecting the ending. And it was weird after watching all these other films to actually see Christopher Lee's face,
That is a good point.
Count Dooku.
With no red eyes or nothing, right?
No, nothing.
Yep. Just him actually getting to play a person for a change.
Yeah. And I also, from the other Sherlock Holmes movies that I have watched, I like the way that they did Watson in this one. Watson seemed more of his equal than just a,
buffoon.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice to see the level of trust that was put into him to go and stay with somebody and try to figure some of this out on his own. And, so that was kind of cool too. I don't think I've seen another film do that with Watson.
Yeah, like in the original stories, Watson was perfectly competent.
Yeah. I don't know if I've read any. I probably have in school. They made us read so many books and stuff. That's like Frankenstein. I've read that one, but I can't recall it enough to be like, oh, this isn't right. And, I I know the basic story. But I don't know a lot about Sherlock Holmes other than Benedict Cumberbatch played.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that was never on my level of spooky, you know. I guess I guess for my Halloween horror stuff, I was more occult, you know. I don't know. Is that the right word for it? This is
In a cult or
right.
or the occult?
More of like the supernatural kind of, you know, zombie, vampire kind of thing. This was more of a mystery. It did have a lore to it, but he kind of, you know, debunked it and made it look silly. I like the silly.
Yeah, and see, that's more what Sherlock Holmes is. This is, I don't think I'm stretching too much to say this is, Hound of the Baskervilles is really not a horror story. It is like you said, it's a mystery, and it's based on this kind of creepy legend that had been building over a couple hundred years. But it wasn't, it was, and that is entirely what Holmes does, is he comes in and he finds what really is going on, no matter how much the bad guy, as it were, is trying to make it seem like something else. He sees through the BS. That's his shtick. He sees through the BS.
It was pretty cool. This was the only one they did of Holmes, though, wasn't it? Hammer?
I believe so.
Believe so, yeah.
I think it wasn't as big a hit. Despite the fact that apparently Peter Cushing himself was a huge fan of it. He apparently enjoyed the hell out of playing Holmes. He was one of those geeks who had read all the stuff beforehand and was a big fan already. So
I mean, he did do a good job.
Oh yeah.
I think well, not really at this time, but Hammer set his presence for horror. And like you had said, this had its moments, but it really wasn't like a horror film.
Right. Yeah, and there were changes, of course, but they fiddled with the story kind of just enough to make it like they did with Curse of Frankenstein. They changed the story up enough to make it their own. And apparently the Doyle estate wasn't real thrilled about this, but you know, whatever. Which also may have something to do with why they didn't make any more. But
probably.
Yeah. I have to say, I think in general, I did like this movie. This may be the most remade of the Holmes stories, and honestly, it's never really been one of my favorites. I really think, and this is probably going way outside the scope of this discussion, but what the hell? Doyle's strength was in his short story writing. He could blow out a short story and do it extremely well. When he tried to write longer works, they tended to fall apart, in my opinion. And Hound of the Baskervilles is one of those longer works. He wrote all the stuff he wrote. Only four of the stories were novels. And honestly, I think they are not the best of his work by a long shot. This story never really jumped out at me, and I've always found it interesting that it's so it's the one they all want to make, and I'm like, why? There are so many better stories. I mean, geez, I think I would love to see a movie done intentionally as like a trilogy, like 3 movies, like say right up front, okay, we're going to make 3 Holmes movies back to back right here and now. And I think the first one needs to end at Reichenbach Falls, because that was where Doyle decided he was getting tired of writing Holmes stories, and so he killed off Holmes. And then public outcry was so loud that he brought him back because he had to, because everybody wanted more stories, and so he ended up writing them for another 20 years after that. So that to me would be like the ultimate Holmes thing, because that it would, I mean, if nothing else, you could get more interesting stuff out of the short stories. And I say that kind of to get back to the point that I actually like this movie. I like Peter Cushing in this role. I like Christopher Lee in a role where he's actually working with Holmes or actually working with Peter Cushing as opposed to against him. I loved what they did with Watson. It was so. I mean, it's not like this guy. It's not like Andre Morell was the only competent Watson ever. But man, did the Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce movies do a lot of damage to Watson's reputation. A lot of damage. And it has struggled ever since, and that was, 80 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So I loved seeing a competent Watson. I thought they handled him really well. The guy who played the doctor was just a dick. I mean, that guy was just a pompous asshole, and it was awesome. He did a really great job at that. Kind of the weirdness with the girl was weirdness with the girl, and, they had to do something to get a younger girl into the movie or something. I don't know. Whatever. It was a weird relationship either way in the novel and in the movie. So whatever. But yes, I think they did a lot of things right in this version of this story, even though the story is not fantastic. That's kind of my stance on it.
Good observations. I enjoyed this one. I ended up going back and watching the Basil Rathbone version just to see how it had varied. And yes, it did. But that being said, the plot twist of both the fiancée and her stepbrother being the villains in this one was a damn sight better than what was in the Nigel Bruce version, because there was no pairing in that first one. In the Rathbone version, there was no pairing of the step siblings working in conjunction to defeat the Baron. So I thought it was a good idea to have that this time, just to show a little variance of the story itself. So this made, like you said, this one made Watson much stronger character. And since, if you think about it, when you read the books, it's all in Watson's hand. So he's essentially there for everything. And in the movies, he can't be. They can't focus on Watson and try to tell a Holmes story, because it's Watson that is the recorder, and therefore, to me, should have been the focus. they stayed away from that. I don't know if I'm speaking with my foot up my ass or what. It just
No, and see, that's kind of, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, in nearly every story, um, they're all written from Watson's point of view and his kind of marveling at Holmes's abilities. And honestly, that is what makes it just as hard to turn into an interesting to watch movie as Frankenstein is. Because they're written in kind of similar ways in that regard, because a lot of the story in Frankenstein comes from this guy who is being told the story. And so he's kind of writing it down as he's being told. So it's written from this not Frankenstein point of view, even though it's Victor is telling him the story. So it's Victor's story, but it's through this lens that you can't, that there's, I don't have any idea how you would replicate that in a movie. You kind of couldn't. And so you have the same problem with Watson. He's that lens, and you just can't visually do everything through Watson all the time and have the story actually make sense without there being just a crap load of exposition. Somebody's sitting there telling you the story, which is boring as hell to watch on screen. So yeah, they have to kind of pull it out and make it different to an extent. And yeah, I like the way they did it in this case for the most part. This version does it pretty well. Because, I mean, that's kind of how they have to make the story their own, like you said.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, I think it's your turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan of this version of Hound Baskervilles. Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely like the handling of Watson in this film. It's funny to kind of watch the Nigel Bruce and Basil Rathbone, which we will be talking about those down the road. We'll be talking about some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Just how's that for a tease? But you know, it's so funny that people still think about that version of Watson, even though he hasn't really been played that way ever since. To my recollection, any version of Watson since then has been the competent. I mean, he's a doctor. I mean, so he can't be an idiot. You know, but it's still funny that stigma is still kind of on him, on this character, to the fact that we kind of remark at how well he's portrayed in this film. Cushing's great. I mean, it was like he was made for this role. I mean, even visually, he looked like Holmes.
He really got into it.
Yeah, you could tell.
He was clearly enjoying himself playing this role.
Yeah. What did you think about some of the changes regarding the Stapletons and all that? Because I know that is something that's always kind of, even when I still kind of, compared to other versions I've seen, I've always kind of just, I don't know, it's like emergency left turn or something when I see it. I've never read the original story, so I don't know which one's closer to the story or not. So, and I know you've read them, Mike.
Yeah.
So, did you have a problem with them changing it around like that?
Not necessarily. I thought it was a little ham-handed to make her his niece, or what was it? She claimed to be his daughter.
Yeah.
But maybe she was. I don't remember what the claim was in the movie, but ultimately she ended up being his daughter, which, I mean, in the book, she was pretending to be his sister, but she was actually married to him.
Right. Yeah. I was seeming to remember that they were actually married, but they were portraying that they were brother and sister.
Right.
Which was the reason why there was kind of the jealousy, because there was the whole thing with her kind of having some feelings for Henry, and him reciprocating those feelings.
Right.
At least in the other versions that I have seen.
Right. Whereas in this version, we get the younger version actively attempting to seduce Sir Henry.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know how necessary that was. I guess it was a way to get to the point quicker, maybe. Rather than them having to spend an extra 20 minutes establishing the friendship there or whatever. I guess this seducing him was quicker. And it gave them an excuse to have a pretty young girl on set.
Of course.
Which is always, I guess, a nice thing. I don't know. It kind of seems a little sexist now, but whatever. We're going to see a lot more of that before this is all over. But anyway.
You think?
Just a bit. But yeah, so I mean, I can see why they would go that route. I don't think it necessarily disturbs the story that much either. I mean, ultimately the point is still, spoiler alert, for a 50 or 60-year-old movie, and for a story that was, I believe, published in 1902, so 120-year-old novel.
Right.
Yeah, Stapleton is the one doing all of this, and so you're ultimately getting to the same point, to the same villain, as it were. So I don't think it really messes with stuff too much. That particular change. I mean, and I don't know. That may be the biggest change, other than the extra attempted murder at the beginning.
Yeah.
I pose this. The final line in the Rathbone version was given by Sherlock as he said, "Watson, the needle." And I wonder how many people understood what that meant. Because at this time, there was not a huge crush on heroin. It wasn't considered all that bad to have at this time. And they stayed away from that in the Lee version, which I commend them for. To me, it would have been so ridiculous to laden the public with this information now after you've seen the movie. All of a sudden toss this little gem in. So I praise them for doing that. Otherwise, it could have been a full-blown mess. And thank God it wasn't.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the Rathbone version was, when did that come out?
30.
Yeah, late.
37.
Yeah. See, and I'm Googling furiously behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I am too.
I mean, cocaine was made illegal.
1939.
Yeah, I mean, finally made illegal in 1939. It was, There was an act in 1914 requiring a doctor's order to get it.
Mhm.
So it had been even by the time that movie had came out, it was starting to be frowned upon, and it was starting to be viewed as an addictive substance. It wasn't that big a deal when the book came out. That it mentions in several stories Holmes's occasional cocaine use, and he did inject. It was injected more often than it was more than it was snorted back then, because it was a great stimulant. But yeah, so it's interesting that they don't put that in the 1959 version. But by then it was totally illegal pretty much everywhere, so they wouldn't have wanted to draw attention to that for sure. But yeah, interesting that it made it to the 37 movie, even given its declining reputation. So that's interesting. I mean, it's real easy. It doesn't come up so often that it would be difficult to just remove it from the story.
Right.
So it only ever gets mentioned at the very beginning or the very end of the stories when it gets mentioned. It's not like he's tooting up and solving crimes. It's something he does when he's bored.
And there was the movie, there was a book, and then a movie of the 7% Solution,
Mm-hmm.
which to me was a really good book and spawned a couple of sequels.
Yeah, the movie wasn't half bad either.
No.
Some interesting portrayals of characters for sure in that movie, including one of the main characters in that is Sigmund Freud. So yeah, it's fun. But yeah, even that's not a direct Holmes story. That was written decades later.
Oh, yes.
Was it written in the 70s? Because I'm pretty sure the movie came out like 78 or so.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering right. So I imagine the book wasn't too much before that.
No, that's true.
So yeah. There's been an awful lot of that sort of thing with Holmes. I mean, there are people still trying to write Holmes stories and writing tangential Holmes stories, as we've seen very recently with Netflix and their Enola Holmes series, which was based on was that a YA series or was it actually a comic first?
I think it's a YA.
I think so too.
Okay. Wasn't sure. But yeah, so people are still doing it. Hell, in the last few years, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote a series of them, I think. I think there was more than one. I think there was like 3 or 4 or more.
Yes, about Mycroft.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a whole lot of fanfic going on out there, and some of it legit. Some of it actually being published. I think I may have derailed that a bit.
Well, I did it, not you.
Fair enough. I may have even derailed your derail.
All right. Well, I think we're all in agreement that both films were really good and highly recommended.
Yes, sirree.
I'd say so.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Any...
One other
Right.
thing that I did write down, Cameo by Miles Mousen. And the tricycle that he rode in on. He was also the funeral guy in The Horrors of Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
The entomologist.
Yep.
The guy they brought in to ask about the spiders.
And his sherry.
And his sherry. It's funny how that came up in both movies, but anyway.
Right.
Yep.
And poor dog. That's what I ended my notes with. Poor dog.
Well,
Doggone it.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
Right, so. I'm sure no actual dogs were harmed.
Oh, no, because that dog looked fake as hell.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to take a quick break and come back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and for this week I lead off. My first choice is from Behemoth Comics. It's a new book called Necromorphous, and it is a story of a teenager named Douglas who gains the forms and memories of any deceased person he touches, or touches whatever remains. But there's a cost for having that ability. He can only feel the pleasure or emotion by being in someone else. And apparently he'll be stuck in the body of a 16-year-old. He will never age.
Mm.
This sounds like a very intriguing book. I'm not familiar with Behemoth Comics, so I definitely want to check this out. And if this is the kind of interesting stories they're going to be putting out, they're going to be one that we would need to look out for, and advise you to check them out too.
Yeah, that does sound interesting.
Very nice.
Alrighty, Les, you're next.
Number 2. My choice is Dynamite #1 from, imagine this, Dynamite Entertainment. This is a new series that combines the characters from Dynamite Entertainment into a single story. You have the Green Hornet and Kato in this, and you have Vampirella in a different part. They will come together to battle a threat, and the threat is going to be major enough that it's, like I said, it's going to encompass the characters that Dynamite has stepped forward with. So I'm looking forward to this just because of a possible meshing of characters. And we know that Vampirella has had series with various people. Green Hornet has also. So let's get this one underway, and hopefully it'll be a very strong title.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Kind of like their Secret Wars.
Kind of, sort of.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Dynamite's done a couple of things like this before too, and they've tended to turn out pretty good. So, and wasn't that the one with Declan Shalvey writing it?
Yes, it is. Declan Shalvey and art by Justin Mason.
Yeah, so there you go.
Cool.
Enough said, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty, Liz, you're next.
All right. For my first pick, I'm going with The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, National Anthem. Now, this is not the one-off I was telling you guys about last week, I think it was. This is actually as you would say, a part 2 to the first Killjoy story. And the first Killjoy story was the Analog Wars. And in this one, we find out that most of the Killjoys have lost their memories of that. They've been reprogrammed and just not really good. Totally opposite of what they used to be. So after the way they put it, a rat chews through Mike's TV cord, the reality unravels. So he finds out the truth, and he's on a crusade to save the rest of his crew. I'm really excited about this one. When MCR launched their last album, The Killjoys, they did the comic, or Jared did the comic book, which kind of told the story of the CD. And with him telling another Killjoy story and really what it's about, I'm kind of curious because it's kind of present day. So maybe we'll see another CD out of this. Maybe. I'm hoping. But it should be really good. But I do have to put the warning out there. If you're looking for a non-political comic, this one's not going to be it. This is so not going to be it.
I suspect that the title National Anthem probably is going to raise the flags on most people for that. But yeah.
Yeah. So, but it should be pretty good, you know.
Cool. And we can't tell at all that you're excited about this.
Oh, so excited.
Not at all.
Nope.
Doesn't show in the least.
And what do we say, guys?
Yay.
Yay.
And there was much rejoicing.
Alrighty. Mikey, I believe you're next.
I think so. So my first pick is from Image Comics this week. And this is actually a graphic novel entitled Dracula, Motherfucker. And this is the story is that, yes, all of the Dracula stuff up to a point. And then in 1974 in L.A., the Dracula's going to make a comeback. So this is going to be a whole. I mean, we're gonna not even think about the Dracula 80 1972 thing because
Right.
because this is in L.A. And honestly, I way more trust the capable hands of Alex DeCampi and Erica Henderson to give us the story that we wanted in the 72 Dracula. So I am excited. I think this is going to be very interesting.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers and sticks.
Right.
Steer clear of 72.
Yeah. Hopefully this will be the better version.
All right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. When I first heard this announced, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. I am up again, and for my second choice is a new series, and this is from Oni Press. It's called The Vein, and this is the story of a FBI agent who is investigating a series of robberies, and this takes place in Chicago in 1941. And these are not bank robberies; these are blood bank robberies. So he's under the suspicion that these are vampires committing these crimes. I'm sold. I think this is such a unique idea. I think this is a great idea. So I would love. Hopefully the execution is there. It should be a fun tale.
Should.
Sounds like fun.
It sounds good, and I'm just wondering if it's all withdrawals and not deposits.
I think that's a different kind of bank you're thinking of, Les.
Okay.
Okay, Les, you're next.
My second choice is a book by Paul Dini called Dark Knight, a true Batman story. With Dini writing, the artist is Eduardo Risso. And this is a really fun read. This is a good read. This is an autobiography by Dini about how Batman as saved Denny as a child by reading Batman and understanding what's going on. The most impressive part of this book is the art, because Risso will change direction on a dime. All of a sudden you've got a different look to the story, and that is phenomenal. So track this one down. Dark Knight, a true Batman story.
Cool.
Yeah, it's always impressive when an artist who has one set style and then is able to change it to match the story. I think that's always cool when it's accomplished real well, and it is with this book.
Cool.
Awesome.
Alrighty, Liz.
All right. For my second pick, it's from Zenescope. It's the Tales of Terror Quarterly 2020 Halloween Special. This one will be with Karis, who is the goddess of death. And it says she's going to bring her own brand of punishment and justice to those unlucky enough to be worthy of her wrath. So I'm thinking this is kind of like one story, of course, but like different short little stories, maybe about different people. I'm thinking. So
They've kind of done that in the past sometimes. So yeah. Maybe.
yeah. So this should be pretty good. Just in time for Halloween. Yay!
Yeah, the Zenescope usually does something fun around Halloween, so yeah, should be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Alrighty, Mikey.
And speaking of Halloween anthology type specials, I've got another one for my second pick. And this is from Rebellion /2000 AD. And it is the Misty and Scream Halloween Special 2020. Whereas you will get a really cool story or group of stories from Liz's pick. That stuff is based in the United States. Misty and Scream is based in the UK. So it's probably going to be a slightly different flavor, but that honestly to me just adds to the interest level. I am always curious to read something that's coming out of a different place like that, a different kind of set of, they kind of have their own comics mythology there, and it's kind of unique in that regard, and it's interesting to read. So I'm going to want to check this out.
Cool.
I agree.
Sounds good. Yeah. Alrighty. Any special shout outs this week?
Well, I'm going to shout out all the horror again.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm going to probably do that for all of October, but it's cool. So yeah, if you're looking to hear some really awesome people putting out some really cool podcasts, and in a different way, there's a bunch of collaboration going on between podcasters. So check out, go to Twitter and either search #allthehorror, or, and this is the preferred method, follow @allthehorror18 on Twitter. And it has, like I said, it has already started. We're getting at least one episode a day already. I expect that will probably ramp up as we get further along. There will probably be more stuff. There's also there's a section on their website that they've got original short stories by a group of different writers. There's original art going on there too to check out. There's a whole lot of cool stuff going on. So go take a look. And our episode will have dropped already. So check that out too if you haven't, because we had a blast with it.
We did.
Alrighty. Any other special shout outs? Okay, we'll go ahead and go with our regular shout outs then. Obviously want to thank Pop Goes to Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be a part of a great group of fellow podcasts. Definitely want you to check them out. There will be a link in the show notes. Also want you to check out the fine folks who make up Podern Family on Twitter, who've been so gracious enough to promote our little podcast. And the best way to do that is just do a search, #Podern Family, and just scroll through, and whatever catches your attention, download that episode. Hopefully you have a blast, and hopefully you found another podcast that's it's gonna be a fun one. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of really good podcasts out there. So thank you guys for your support as always. Want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. Definitely check out some of their music. There'll be a link in the show notes as well. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We value your feedback. If you have any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, observations, what have you, please send them to us. There are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website, go to the About Us tab, and there's a form there that you can fill out. While you're on the website, you can also join, click on the invite to join our Discord, and you can contact us that way. Or you can follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, and obviously we're on Twitter, @FellowshipGeeks. You can follow us on both social media platforms. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found @MikeyGeek. Liz can be found @LN_geek. And I can be found @TomTCGeek. And from wherever you download our shows, if you take a couple of moments to rate and review us, it would be greatly appreciated. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening.
Appreciate your listening as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook @The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter @FellowshipGeeks. Until next time,